Welcome back, Freedom Protectors. So look, as we all woke up this morning to the news by the liberal media that the ghost gun company Polymer 80 was raided by the ATF, right? And of course, all of our communities are blowing up in posts and comments and threads, and the entire internet is going nuts as we continue to digest some of the information coming out. So I'm going to go through the Wall Street Journal report because that was the first article to be published on it. So let's kind of grab right into it. The headline: Ghost gun company raided by federal agents. And it goes on to say federal agents on Thursday, that was yesterday, raided one of the nation's largest manufacturers of ghost gun parts. A sign that federal law enforcement is cracking down on kits that allow people to make weapons at home. Because, look, good patriots like us, good enthusiasts of firearms that want to build our own piece of freedom, that's where the ATF needs their most attention. But that's beside the point. The raid target, Nevada-based Polymer 80, is suspected of illegally manufacturing and distributing firearms, failing to pay taxes, so they know who has them. Why would they want to know that? Shipping guns across state lines and failing to conduct background investigations. Pretty serious. According to an application for a search warrant unsealed Thursday after the raid took place, I suspect the ATF is breaking the law and infringing on their rights. We should have a warrant to search their offices, because I'm sure this isn't politically motivated at all. Goes on to say, the probe focuses on Polymer 80's buy, build, shoot kit. Okay. Which includes the parts to build a ghost, that's in quotation marks, handgun. The kit, which Polymer 80 sells online, meets the definition of a firearm. Holy dog shit, did you know that? This is brand new information. According to this article, if the ATF is now saying that a buy, build, shoot kit, which is nothing more than an 80% frame kit with parts, that now meets the definition of a firearm. Who knew? So we have a whole new definition, according to this article, of what a firearm is. And you know what's funny is the definition comes from who? The ATF decides what a firearm is. But see, at the end of the day, not to get too off on a tangent, it's one of the most misunderstood things, and it's one of the things that aggravates me about our own community and people in the firearms communities. We have social justice warriors go out there and tell us that, a frame is a gun. And a gun, by definition, fires a projectile. So even if it was a serialized frame, I don't care what anybody says, it cannot fire a projectile without an upper. That's another whole discussion. But this whole situation that we get ourselves into, that we have just seen with Q happening, we're seeing with braces, and now this, is the ATF keeps deciding what these definitions are, and they keep moving that goalpost forward. So according to this, a buy, build, shoot kit, which is nothing more than an 80% frame, which obviously we know is not a firearm, but because it is mixed with other components such as parts and a slide and a barrel, lower parts kit, upper parts kit, that is now, according to this, the ATF interpreting as a firearm. I guess if it comes in the same box, that's what they're saying. So even if I go to something like Midway and I order a frame kit, I order a slide, I order a barrel, I order parts kits, that if they send that to me in one box, this, according to this article, is now a firearm. But again, who knew? Okay? The ATF investigators determined, according to the warrant application, so on this warrant, they have deemed this new definition of a firearm. That means it would have to be stamped with a serial number and could not be sold to consumers who haven't first passed a background check. Again, this is all brand new information. This is out of the dark. ATF all of a sudden deciding this and then serving and executing a search warrant on a good corporate citizen. It's a shame what is happening. Polymer 80 Chief Executive David Borges didn't return phone calls or texts seeking comment Thursday evening. Well, no shit. Why does that paragraph even need to be in here, Wall Street Journal? Because we need to paint a picture that they're what? They're not responsive? You just had them served a warrant, a stupid warrant on suspicion, and oh, you know, the president isn't returning our calls right away. Probably not going to return your calls. Goes on here to say agent seized records. Records? What records? Oh, that's where the tax stuff comes in, because we need to know who bought these. I wonder why they would need to know that, because Polymer 80 isn't going to give it to them willingly. They need to put in the little tax stuff in there so we can seize business transaction records to make sure, you know, that this great corporate citizen that they have been all of a sudden isn't paying their taxes. Shut the fuck up, okay? So agents seized records and other evidence in Thursday's raid in Dayton, close to Carson City. A law enforcement official with knowledge of the investigation said. Well, this is great that a law enforcement official with knowledge of the investigation is telling the Wall Street Journal what the definition of a firearm is, but isn't telling the firearms community that they changed the definition. So this is fantastic. This is real. Pat yourself on the back that this is the way that we keep the public informed here in America. No Polymer 80 employees were arrested and no charges have been filed. That's because you didn't have evidence to begin with, and it's because I know a lot of the employees personally at Polymer 80, and they are outstanding patriots of this nation, and they are not going to jeopardize us in the firearm community by doing anything illegal. The raid by agents with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives comes after ghost guns have been used more frequently, oh, here we go, more frequently in high-profile attacks, right? This is our justification. This is where, you know, the culture war comes in. You know, the people that build 80% firearms are the big bad wolf, and they go and do these high-profile attacks, right? So let's see what we got here. All right, hold on. Which ones are they going to quote? In September, 2 Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department deputies were shot while sitting in their patrol vehicle by a man, they don't mention his name here, using a handgun built from Polymer 80 parts, according to the documents. And it's absolutely tragic what happened to these 2 officers. And, you know, it's one of the ironies of this entire culture war with us. The same people, us, the patriots, are the ones that have been sticking up for law enforcement with all of these calls to defund them and, you know, the tragic attacks that have been happening on the police. It's actually the Second Amendment community and the patriots of this country that have been standing up against people trying to attack and defund law enforcement. But that's neither here nor there. This was a tragic event. What's funny, though, is that they omit to tell you that it was Deontay Murray. Now, Deontay Murray, oh my God, where do we begin with him? All right, he did shoot 2 law enforcement officials. He did shoot them with an 80% firearm, no doubt about it. But it's not an 80% firearm problem in that case. Deontay Miller was a known criminal with ties to gangs in Compton. Known. And again, we're talking about California, right? The strictest gun laws in the country. And this is where this occurs, right? But Deontay's criminal convictions include sales of narcotics, firearm possession by a felon, long before this stuff happened, okay? Sales of narcotics, firearm possession by a felon, burglary, and terrorist threats. Why is this guy on the street to begin with? You can blame 80% guns, but it's a failure of your judicial system to lock away felons. He should not have been out of jail, but that's beside the point. But we got to paint a picture, right? We got to paint the picture. So that's one high-profile case. It's the 80% gun fault why that happened, not the fact that this guy was walking around under the streets, right? That has nothing to do with it. The next profile case, last year, a 16-year-old killed 2 fellow students and wounded 3 others at Saugus High School in Southern California with a homemade gun. Again, we need to paint a picture. A very tragic event. no doubt about it, all right? But this 16-year-old, and this also happened in California, this 16-year-old, what they don't say, was a very young man in an unfortunate situation, but he certainly didn't buy an 80% and build it and put it together and do all this stuff. His mother and father were divorced. His father was an avid hunter. His father was a firearms enthusiast. His father built firearms. His father passed away and died, and this young man went and took one of the guns from his father's collection and went and shot up that school and subsequently shot himself. Okay, but the reality is that he could have chosen any gun in there. He just happened to choose the 1911 his father built. Okay, so let's not paint a picture that this kid went and bought this, put it together, and schemed this whole thing. That's not what occurred there. Moving forward, Thursday's raid is the most significant action against a ghost gun company to date, according to law enforcement officials, here we go again, and suggests the federal government is scrutinizing the growing industry. Yeah, you mean oppressing people's rights, right? Homemade ghost guns have grown in popularity in recent years and can't be traced in criminal investigations because they lack serial numbers. Law enforcement officials, these same law enforcement officials, say they appeal to people who can't pass background checks. You're out of your friggin' mind. If you ever watch any part of this channel, which I know we do as a community, we all know that if I wanted to buy a gun and use it in a criminal behavior, the last thing I'm going to do is spend the amount of money that we spend on building guns, buying tools, taking time to learn the knowledge, when I could just go buy one on the street for under $100 and use it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But again, it's expected. They need to paint the picture. When people buy fully made guns from dealers, the weapons have serial numbers. They do. And purchasers must go through a background check. Serial numbers don't always tie people to criminal behavior. It's ballistics that usually ties it to a crime. But again, another conversation. Approximately 10,000 ghost guns were recovered by law enforcement in 2019. Now that sounds like a lot of numbers, but when you figure that there's 70 to 100,000 units sold every single month, that's just a very, very small blip in the big scheme of things. According to the warrant application, as part of the investigation, the ATF identified multiple Polymer 80 customers who were prohibited from buying guns because of prior criminal convictions. Of course, criminals are going to get their hand on guns, whether they're 80% guns or not. It's already a felony. We know this. It does not matter. The starting point for building a ghost gun is an unfinished receiver. Oh, they're going to educate us. Oh, wait, let me pull up. The starting point for building a ghost gun is an unfinished receiver, a metal or polymer piece that houses the firing mechanism. It can be purchased without a background check because the ATF doesn't classify the part as a firearm. Why, again, is the ATF dictating to us what a firearm is? It's something that I cannot get over. Buyers can finish the receiver with a drill press or a computerized metal cutting machine and then add the remaining pieces to complete the gun. The ATF previously, so I guess we're going to reconsider this, gave Polymer 80 permission to sell unfinished receivers. Yes, we've all seen that letter. But the buy, build, shoot kits, which are advertised as having all necessary components to build a complete pistol, that's in quotations, weren't submitted to the agency for approval, according to the application for the search warrant. So here we go again. We have completely changed, according to this, what the definition of a firearm is and what constitutes when a 4473, I guess, a background check needs to be executed. And according to what they're trying to say here is that if the frame is coming with parts in a slide and barrel and parts kits, that is somehow a firearm. I mean, who knew? And again, crazy jump and leap there by the ATF. Huge leap. Huge leap. These kits can be assembled into fully functioning firearms in a matter of minutes. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I would love to be in front of a jury and watch them gunsmith a Polymer 80 locking block. Wouldn't you? I think it would be ultimate entertainment for me to watch average citizens gunsmith a block. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, the warrant application says, and that's kind of the end of it. So look, where are we? Who knows? I don't know where we are. Again, this is all new information. It's just come out in the last 24 hours. You know, obviously our entire community is in flux. Polymer 80 put out, you know, a very corporate response saying, look, we're going to, you know, we're working on it. We're going to take care of it. We've always valued our relationship with law enforcement, and we have been cooperative when it was legally presented to us. But Polymer 80 will fully fight this, and it's almost good in a way because we need some of this to come to a head. And I've always been saying this in lots of videos, we need a point where it comes to a head and we can get a firm legal decision, because one of the cases that I talk about all the time was with Mr. Rowe, and you know, the ATF went after him when he was really forthcoming with them and trying to work with them and stay within the law, and they abused their power, arrested him, you know, closed his business, and you know, basically tried to shut him down. Well, they did shut him down, but then tried to punish him. And it wasn't until a judge signaled that they were going to call bullshit on what the ATF identifies as a gun did the ATF all of a sudden seal the deal, squash it, get rid of it, because they didn't want a judgment against them, you know, going against what they interpret as a firearm. Now, so if that is not a clear indication of a abuse of law enforcement actually enforcing things that they know are not legitimate and infringing on your rights, and when it comes down to a decision, they just squash it because they don't want to undo their own interpretation, that's tyranny, my friend. That's stripping your liberty. That is, you know, everything that we are against when it comes to protecting our rights and our freedoms. And certainly it is a huge infringement on the Second Amendment when we have rogue agencies doing things like that. What does it mean, though? Where do we go from here? I think we'll probably got like a couple of weeks here of uncertainty. I can certainly see resellers right now who sell Polymer 80 kits and then add in their own parts to make their own full build kits. I'm sure they're going to be a little bit squeamish, but in the same sense, I think that this is actually a positive. And the reason why I say that is because we do need something to come to a head. And I think that there really is no better defendant for us, right, voice for us, than Polymer 80 themselves. You know, they have been involved in so many lawsuits. They consistently use the profits that they make to undo, you know, terrible actions by federal law enforcement, and they fight in court for us all the time. So I think here, by the ATF going after them, and again, you know, we're seeing a pattern now, very clear. They picked the wrong people to go after. I think that, you know, they're trying to take out the big fish and maybe the small fish will fall in line. But what I don't think that they fully comprehend is they just went after a shark, and they went after a shark with a complete bullshit story, and that shark is going to consume them. I know as far as us in the community, we're going to stand by them as we always have, and as they have stood by us. And we will use our collective voice to call out the bullshit that the ATF has pulled here. So as I get more information, I will certainly be passing it along to you. And I would ask that you please follow along in some of our communities. I will put them down in the description, because an informed public and an informed community is the best way for us to combat these assaults against our Second Amendment. All right, that's it for today, my friends. Semper Fi, do or die.